Welcome to this evening's reading and discussion session, Bhagavad Gita as it is. We shall proceed with our introduction prayer. Page 1 of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Datati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vrindeshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Shalina Mataji, please read for us. Introduction.
Hare Krishna. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of light. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brothers Sanatan Goswami, as well as Raghunatha Dasa and Raghunatha Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Srivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. O my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold and who is the Queen of Vrindavana. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhara, Sri Vasa, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shalina Mataji. So we stopped last week in chapter 2, verse 58. Continue today with verse 59, which in my book is on page 131. Before we do that, let's do a little bit of kirtan. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadishtarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Radha Radhe Jaya Radha Krishna Radhe Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Gurudev Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, so welcome again. We're starting on verse number 59, chapter 2 in my book, page 131. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vishaya vinivartante Niraharasya dehinaha rasavarjam rasopi asya param dristva nivartate. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in Krishna consciousness. He is fixed in consciousness. So here, in this verse, the line param dristva nivartate, means one who ceases from sense enjoyment by experiencing a higher taste. We all know that higher taste that is referred to in here is the taste of Krishna consciousness. So let's go on to read Srila Prabhupada's purport. Unless one is transcendentally situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Astanga Yoga in the matter of Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, and Dhyan, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. But one who has tasted the beauty of Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has the taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for the less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has the taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. Okay, so here in this verse, we see that the Lord and Srila Prabhupada goes on to explain that as one advances in Krishna consciousness, he loses his taste for material things. Because his consciousness is advancing, his consciousness is getting cleared, it's getting purified. And he automatically loses the taste for pale things. What are pale things? Paramatma Prabhu, what pale things do you think Prabhupada is referring to here in this context, in this verse?
I think sense gratification, Mataji.
Yes. Yes. Sense gratification, anything material, yeah, that will, promote sense gratification, right? So the only way to do that is to advance in Krishna consciousness. So we have to engage in Krishna conscious activities. There are a few things that was listed here. The processes where Prabhupada refers to here is similarly sense restriction by some spiritual process, like it's a spiritual process, but it sort of bogs you down to material, on the material realm. And he refers to them as yam, niyam, asana. Let's go through these very briefly, right? So yam or yama refers to restraint. So there are 8 stages of yoga to reach samadhi. We spoke about samadhi previously, right? It's a very high bar to reach. So there are stages. The first stage of this is called yam, and it means restraint. So you restrain yourself, you restrain your senses. Then niyam refers to rules and observances. There's lots of rules and rituals laid down for us in scripture. So that's what niyam refers to. Asana is the third stage of this process, and it refers to the seat that is taken for meditation. Asana is like a seat, asan. We speak of vyasa asan. Asan is a seat, and it's a seat for meditation. Sorry, please excuse me. I'm very sorry about this. I'm in a class. Okay, so asana is a seat. Start meditation, right? It's process of starting meditation. You take your seat to start. Pranayam is a technique used for breathing in yoga. You would have heard of pranayam, where sometimes people will breathe in through one nostril, release to the other, breathe in again through the other, hold the breath, release to the reverse nostril. That is pranayam. It's a technique used to regulate, I think, to steady the mind for practice of yoga and meditation. Then pratyahara is the withdrawal of senses, right? So it's prati or means to withdraw, and ahar is external things like sense objects. So pratyahara therefore means the withdrawal of senses from external objects. Dhara refers to persevere, to preserve or sustain. And dhyan means to meditate and concentrate. So those are the 8 processes referred to in this purport, and that's what it means. But if we have to explore it, discuss it a little bit, let's take the first one, yama, restraint. Right? Now, in Krishna consciousness, we try not to restrain our senses to the point where it's going to be superficial. Instead, we engage our senses. It's a total opposite. So therefore, Prabhupada is saying over here, when one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. Earlier on, Prabhupada says here, the patient, however, neither likes such restriction nor loses his taste for ethics. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process, like these 8 processes, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. So if you are situated in God consciousness, if you are situated in Krishna consciousness, you need not follow these processes, because restraining your senses is a very difficult thing to do. And at some point, you're going to want to engage that sense in some sort of activity, right? I mean, one cannot go on fasting, for example, for a very long period of time, because then his mind is going to wander and he's going to think about food stuff. So where is the question of now concentrating on meditation if you're going to be in that state of mind, where you're straining your senses to such an extent that just, the demands of your senses are so strong that you can't concentrate further? How will it take you to your final stage of samadhi? It's a difficult process. The easier process, therefore, Prabhupada says, is Krishna consciousness. So we instead engage our senses in serving the Lord. Yes, we do austerities, we do fasting, etc. But there's a time for that and place for that. It's not like you would sit and go into meditation and attempt to fast for like weeks or months on end or whatever the case may be. Right? Even this technique of breathing, it puts the mind in a calm state. There's nothing wrong with doing a little bit of that. But instead of engaging our time and energy in these techniques, let's engage our time and energy in serving Krishna, engaging each sense in serving Krishna. And in that way, you become Krishna conscious. And that's what Prabhupada is doing. In the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness, he no longer has the taste for dead material things. Is that okay? All right. Any thoughts on this verse from anybody? Navkishore Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Any thoughts on that verse, Mataji, on what we just discussed now?
No, Mataji. Thank
Nothing
you.
you want to share? Okay.
No.
All right, so let's go to, you can read this, Navkishore Mataji. It's verse 60.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yet, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Yet
Right.
to hayapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitaha indriyani pramathini haranti prasabhamanaha. Should I go ahead with the translation?
Yes, please, Mataji.
Thank you. And purport also, Mataji?
Yes, please.
Okay, sure. Thank you. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Purport. There are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses, but in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. Even Vishwamitra, great sage and perfect yogi, was misled by Menaka into sex enjoyment. Although the yogi was endeavoring for sense control with several types of penance and yoga practice. And of course, there are so many similar instances in the history of the world. Therefore, it is very difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna conscious. Without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot seize such material engagements. A practical example is given by Sri Yamunacharya, a great saint and devotee, who says,
Go on, Mataji.
should I read these verse?
If you're comfortable with it, otherwise you can just go to the English.
Okay. यदावधि मम एतः कृष्ण पदारविन्दे नव नवरसा धर्मय धमनय उद्वातं रन्तुम् असीता तदा अवद पता नरी संगमे समार्यान्मने भवति मुखा विकारः सुष्टुं मिष्टिवनमचा. Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, and I have been enjoying on even new transcendental humor. Whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it, and I spit at the thought. Krishna consciousness is such a transcendentally nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man had satisfied his hunger by a sufficient quantity of nutritious eatables. Maharaja Amrisha also conquered a great yogi, Durvasa Muni, simply because his mind was engaged Krishna conscious. Sa vai manah Krishna padar vindarya Vachmasi Vaikuntha Gunar Varnane. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. So this purport here, is actually very important. See, Sri Yamuna Acharya Ji, great saint in our line of disciplic succession. So he says here that this nice quote over here, that only through by being fully engaged in the service of Lord Krishna and in being engaged in Krishna conscious activities, only by that can he feel disgust against material sex life. Right? Krishna consciousness is such a transcendentally nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. And Maharaj Ambarish, we'll discuss a little bit further now in the following verses, the story of Maharaj Ambarish and Durvasa Muni. That's a very nice example in relation to the verses that we are discussing today. Also, it comes to mind, I can't remember the name of the sage. Maybe one of you can help me. Who else is on this chat? Navkishore Mataji, you probably will remember the sage that was meditating underwater for many, many years. For so many years, he got distracted by two fish that were having union. And because of that, his meditation broke. And he came out of the water and went to the king and asked to marry his 100 daughters. So look at that, meditating for so many years underwater. So this takes us back here. Yam niyam asana pranayam pratyahara dhara and dhyana. Takes us through the sages, the yogis practice these techniques and this breathing, etc., for so many, many, many years. And they restrain the senses. See the first one, restraint. Observing the rules and regulations. They take the step for meditation. They practice this holding of the breath under the water in this example. Withdraw the senses and they sustain it and meditate and concentrate with all their mights. But because the senses are not practically engaged in serving Krishna, it's supposed to be quite a problem indeed. So it's reminding me of this pastime. And the sage's meditation was broken. Navkishore Mataji, you remember which sage that was?
Is it Kardama Muni and Devahuti Mataji? Kapil Muni? No, I'm not sure.
No.
Was it
No.
Sauba Hari Muni?
Yes, correct.
I think so. Yes. Right. So that's a nice example in this relation to this verse, don't you think? Right. Okay, so let's move on to verse 61. Veronica Mataji, you want to read the Sanskrit purport, everything?
Okay, I'll try. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matvaraha vasehit yasyendriyani tasya prajna pratishtitha. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, is known as a man of steady intelligence. Purport that the highest conception of yoga perfection is Krishna consciousness is clearly explained in this verse. And unless one is Krishna conscious, it is not at all possible to control the senses. As cited above, the great sage Durvasa Muni picked a quarrel with Maharaj Ambarish, and Durvasa Muni unnecessarily became angry out of pride and therefore could not check his senses. On the other hand, the king, although not as powerful a yogi as the sage, but a devotee of Lord Krishna, silently tolerated all the sage's injustices and thereby emerged victorious. The king was able to control his senses because of the following qualifications, as mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay, you may or may not read the Sanskrit. That's left entirely up to you, Veronica. It's quite a lengthy one. You can try if you'd like to.
Okay,
It's like the 1, 2, 3 stanzas, yeah.
Krishna. Savarmanha Krishna Padar Vindaryu Vashamshi Vekunta Kunanud Parnane Gara Hare Hare Mandira Marjanadishu Chutam Chakrachuta Satkadodhaye Mukunda Lingalaye Darshane Driso Tat Pratya Kadra Sparse Riga Sanjamam Granam Cha Tatpata Saroj Saurabhi Srimat Tulasya Rasanam Tat Arpite Padau Hare Kshetra Padhanu Sharpane Zero Rikesha Padabhivandane Kamam Cha Dasye Natu Kama Kamaya Yatotam Shloka Shanasraya Rati. King Ambarish fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, engaged his words in describing the abode of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the body of the devotee, his nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaves offered to him, his legs in traveling to the holy place where his temple is situated, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord. And all these qualifications made him fit to become a matpara, a devotee of the Lord. The word matpara is most significant in this connection. How one can become a matpara is described in the life of Maharaj Ambarish. Srila Baladev Vivibhushan, a great scholar and acharya in the line of the matpara, remarks, Matbhakti Prabhavene Sarvinandriya Vijaye Purvika Svatma Tristi Sulabheti Bhava. The senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of devotional service to Sri Krishna. Also, the example of fire is sometimes given. As the blazing fire burns everything within a room, Lord Vishnu, situated in the heart of the yogi, burns up all kinds of impurities. The Yoga Sutra also prescribes a meditation on Vishnu and not meditation on the void. The so-called yogis who meditate on something other than Vishnu simply waste their time in a vain search after some phantasmagoria. We have to be Krishna conscious, devoted to the personality of Godhead. This is the aim of the real yoga. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Very knowledge-packed. A lot of information in this purport of the year of Srila Prabhupada's. So last week, Nav Kishore Mataji spoke a little bit about Ambarish Maharaj when we spoke about devotional service and very correctly and nicely used Maharaj Ambarish as an example where he engaged all his senses in serving the Lord. And there's it nicely laid out here by Srila Prabhupada in this purport and in references to those verses that were just quoted but from the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's Canto 9. Right, so we can see here that also the very interesting here, where they say here, his eyes, referring to Lord Maharaj Ambarish, King Ambarish, his eyes in the seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the body of the devotee. Can you see how important it is to serve the devotee? Yes, it's important to touch the body of the Lord. How? by touching the body of the deity. You know, when you serve the deity, you bathe the deity, you dress the deity, you do offerings to the deity. But see how nicely it says here, in touching the body of a devotee. So how high is service to devotees? It's really, really, really very important to serve devotees, right? That's what I wanted to point out here. And also, the word matpara means one who has dedicated his life to Krishna. And this example is Maharaj Ambarish. Matpara is one who has dedicated his life. And Maharaj Ambarish, King Ambarish, dedicated his life to the Lord quite nicely. Right, see also here at the bottom, Prabhupada says here, this is the aim of real yoga. So we speak of yoga, and I think sometimes the term yoga is used very loosely. Very loosely. And when we say yoga, straight away people think of going to a yoga studio and performing all these different astanga, or these different poses and stretches, etc., etc. That's very good, but that's just for the body, isn't it? But the aim of real yoga is what? To train the mind, to become Krishna conscious, to realize your goal, to reach your goal, to be devoted to God, to be devoted to the personality of Godhead. That is the aim of real yoga. Not for temporary making this body look nice and healthy, etc. That's just temporary. Because when the soul leaves the body will die. And the yoga goes out the back door. I'm not saying don't look after the body and don't do yoga practices for keeping the body fit. Yes, but we should always be mindful about the time we spend on this and the time we spend on our spiritual lives. And how are we engaging the mind and senses in serving the Lord? Are we going to reach the real aim or not? That is $1 million question. Okay, I just got some notes here on Maharaj Ambarish. Those of you who are not familiar with his katha. So this is an extract from the Srimad Bhagavatam, where it speaks of Maharaj Ambarish. Maharaj Ambarish was offering prayers to the Sudarshan Chakra. Sudarshan Chakra is the disc that's held by the Lord, right? Krishna holds it, or Lord Vishnu holds the Sudarshan Chakra. You know, the Lord has all his different weapons that he holds in his hand, right? He has a shank. Firstly, he has a shank that is the conch shell in the one arm. Then he holds the Padma, the lotus flower. He holds the Gadha, that club. And he also holds the Sudarshan Chakra, which is the disc. So Maharaj Ambarish was offering prayer to the Sudarshan Chakra because each of the Lord's weapons and paraphernalia are personified. It's not just an item. It's transcendental, and therefore it is a personality, right? So he was offering prayer to Sudarshan Chakra. And we find out how the Sudarshan Chakra became merciful to Durvasa Muni. Now, Durvasa Muni was a great sage as well. But he also got very easily angered, and everybody was generally very afraid of him because of his anger, and he used to just be shout curses when he got angry. So by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, Durvasa Muni immediately went to Maharaj Ambarish and fell at his lotus feet. This is after a past time. There was a dispute. I wouldn't say from both parties. I would say that Durvasa Muni got angry with Ambarish Maharaj, and he was ready to curse him, etc. But the order of the Lord said to, when the Lord was very angered, because the Lord does not tolerate any offenses to his devotees. So he released the Sudarshan Chakra. He released this chakra, this disc, to go and behead Durvasa Muni. So this chakra was chasing Durvasa Muni all over the universe. Durvasa Muni ran for shelter everywhere, even to Lord Shiva, and nobody could help him. And eventually he went to the Lord himself. The Lord said, there's nothing I can do. Now the chakra is released, and you are sure to die by the chakra. So the only person who can save you from this will be Maharaj Ambarish himself, the person whom you have offended. So if anybody can save you, it's only him. So you must go back to him. and beg for his forgiveness. So this is something for us to learn as well. Lesson for us. If we offend anybody, we offend devotees or anybody, we need to go and seek forgiveness from them. There's no point in sitting and praying, oh Krishna, please forgive me, please forgive me. Yes, you can do that. But it's very important if you have offended a devotee to go to the devotee and beg for his forgiveness, because only the devotee is capable of relieving you of that offense. Right? So this is a very nice lesson for us here in this pastime. Right? Not that we should offend devotees, but if it does happen sometimes in a moment of weakness. So Maharaj Ambarishi, being naturally very humble and meek, because he's a devotee, felt shy and ashamed because Durvasa Muni had fallen at his feet. And thus he began to offer prayers to the Sudarshan Chakra just to save Durvasa Muni. And what is the Sudarshan Chakra? The Sudarshan Chakra is the glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by which he creates the entire material world. Right? Very interesting. Sa Aikshata, Sa Arjata. This is the Vedic version. The Sudarshan Chakra, which is the origin of creation and most dear to the Lord, has thousands of spikes, I think it means, not spokes. The Sudarshan Chakra is the killer of the prowess of all other weapons, the killer of darkness, and the manifester of prowess of devotional service. It is the means of establishing religious principles, and it is the killer of all irreligious activities. Without his mercy, the universe cannot be maintained, and therefore the Sudarshan Chakra is employed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So now, when Maharaj Ambarish thus prayed that the Sudarshan Chakra be merciful, the Sudarshan Chakra, being appeased, refrained from killing Durvasa Muni, who thus achieved the Sudarshan Chakra's mercy. Durvasa Muni thus learned to give up his nasty idea of considering a Vaishnava an ordinary person. Vaishnava Jati Buddhi. So Vaishnava is a devotee. So he realized that a Vaishnava is not an ordinary person. Maharaj Ambarishi belonged to the Shakti group, and therefore Durvasa Muni considered him lower than the Brahmanas and wanted to exercise Brahmanical power against him. By this incident, everyone should learn how to stop mischievous ideas of neglecting Vaishnavas. We should never neglect a devotee. They are very dear to Krishna. After this incident, Maharaj Ambarish gave Durvasa Muni sumptuous food to eat, and then the king, who had been standing in the same place for 1 year without eating anything, also took prasad. Maharaj Ambarish later divided his property among his sons, and he went to the Manasarovar to execute devotional meditation. So in a nutshell, that's a little background to the little dispute that happened between, or rather the curse of Durvasa Muni to Ambarish Maharaj and the Sudarshan Chakra, and how he got saved only by the devotee himself. Right. So the vivid example is Ambarish Maharaj Ambarish. He was an emperor of the entire world, and he had many duties to perform. And of course, and in the course of these duties, there were many disturbances created by persons like Durvasa Muni. But the king tolerated everything patiently, depending fully on the mercy of the Lord. So I'm going to stop here. So likewise, in our devotional life, we too can encounter many disturbances whilst executing our devotional duties. But we need to develop this mood of tolerance, because tolerance is also one of the 26 qualities of a devotee. See Maharaj Ambarish, how he tolerated everything. And how? By depending on the mercy of the Lord. So if you just carry on executing your duties, but offering everything to Krishna, not remaining attached to it, just moving forward that way in a tolerant manner, you will be able to get the mercy of the Lord. Right? The Lord, however, is situated in everyone's heart. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivisto, the famous verse 15 that I always refer to. And he manages things as he desires. So the Lord is situated in everyone's hearts, and he knows your desire. He knows your desire, and he fulfills your desire. So we should desire correctly. We should fully depend on the Lord and execute our duties. giving up the results of or the fruits of those duties and of those actions. So thus, although Maharaj Ambarish was faced with many disturbances, the Lord, being merciful to him, managed things so nicely that in the end, Durvasa Muni and Ambarish Maharaj became great friends and parted cordially on the basis of Bhakti Yoga. That is, on the basis of devotional service. So after all, Durvasa Muni was convinced of the power of Bhakti Yoga. Now Durvasa Muni became convinced of the power of Bhakti Yoga by looking at the example of Maharaj Ambarish. Although he himself was a great mystic yogi, Durvasa Muni was a great mystic yogi, but even he realized the power of devotional service, the power of Bhakti Yoga. Right? Okay, so that was that verse. How are we doing for time? Awesome. Now, verse 62. Who else is present and would like to read verse 62? Anybody else? Going to try Shalina Mataji? Going to try the Sanskrit.
Mataji, I'll do Narshinga Pranam at the end.
Okay, no problem. Let's go. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Dhyayato Vishayan Pumshaha, Sangastesu Pajayate, Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha, Kamat Krodha Abhijayate. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. So one who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the objects of the senses. The senses require real engagements, and if they are not engaged in transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, including in the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects. And the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was in deep meditation, but when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. When Haridas Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he was similarly allured by the incarnation of Maya Devi, but Haridas easily passed this test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. As illustrated in the above-mentioned verse of Sri Yamunacharya, a sincere devotee of the Lord shuns all material sense enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. That is the secret of success. One who is not, therefore, in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses by artificial repression, is sure ultimately to fail, for the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. We spoke about the 8 processes 2 or 3 verses away. It kind of ties in with this last bit of the Srila Prabhupada's purport here. However powerful he may be in controlling his senses by artificial repression, the first leg of that, I think, was repression. Suppressing your senses is dangerous, because just the thought, we said that the mind is very, very, very powerful tool. We spoke about it before, and Arjuna says somewhere in Bhagavad Gita that the mind is so powerful that it is more difficult to control than the raging wind. And I remember in one of our classes, we also spoke about sometimes yogis strive to reach Brahman. Brahman is that sphere where in between the material and spiritual world, it's the effulgence of Krishna. It's the area that's called the light. So some people strive to go there, and they do, somehow attain that destination. But once they're there, the mind starts working at some point, because the mind cannot remain totally free of any thought. And as soon as the mind thinks, the mind desires. And as soon as you desire, you want the facility to gratify that desire. Okay, and then such people fall down from there back into the material. Okay, chapter 2, verse 63. Anybody reading? Nav Kishore Mataji? Hare Krishna, you want to read this, Nav Kishore Mataji?
Yes, Mataji.
Read
Hare Krishna.
everything, right?
Sure, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. (263), page 135. It's up on my screen as well.
Yes, Mataji, I'm reading from there. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Krodhata bhavati sammoha, sammohasma smurti vibhramaha, smurti prashanta buddhadhinasho, buddhinashat pranashyati. Text 63, verse. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Srila Rupa Goswami has given us these directions. Mataji, can I read this?
Yes, yes, can read.
Thank you, Mataji. Prapanchikataya buddhaya hari sambandhi vastunaha mumukshubhiha parityaga vairagyam falgu kathayate. By development of Krishna consciousness, one can know that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. Those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects, and as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain to the perfect stage of renunciation. Their so-called renunciation is called falgu, or less important. On the other hand, a person in Krishna consciousness know how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. For example, for an impersonalist, the Lord or the Absolute, being impersonal, cannot eat. Whereas an impersonalist try to avoid good eatables. A devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, and that he eats all that is offered to him in devotion. So after offering good eatables to the Lord, the devotee take the remnants called prasadam. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so thus everything becomes spiritualized, and there is no danger of downfall. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotee rejects it as material. The impersonalist therefore cannot enjoy life due to his artificial renunciation, and for this reason, a slight agitation of the mind pulls him down again into the pool of material existence. It is said that such a soul, even though rising up to the point of liberation, falls down again due to his not having support in devotional service. See, comes back to the same point, devotional service. We shouldn't artificially renounce things, artificially give up eating. No, we should eat, but we should eat Krishna's prasadam, because Krishna's prasadam purifies our consciousness. We shouldn't artificially say, now, I won't talk, I'm observing Maun Dharan. I'm sacrificing speech. No point in that. Then you're going to think about, I want to say something, and then you're thinking about what you want to say. Engage the tongue in singing the glories of the Lord. Engage speech in glorifying the Lord, in preaching. Okay, so we don't artificially give up anything. Instead, we dovetail it and utilize it in God consciousness, in serving the Lord and his devotees. So there's 8 stages of fall down here. It's spoken about here as well, which is contemplation, lust, anger, delusion, loss of memory, intelligence is lost, and then you fall down into the material pool. Okay. Just to go back to verse 62, the one we read before this, we read 63, 62 is the one before that. It says here, the translation, while contemplating the sense objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. So you're thinking about the sense objects, about the objects, and you get attached to it, right? And from such attachment, lust develops, because now you're lusting to fulfill that whatever sense object it is, right? And from lust, what happens? From lust, anger arises. Why would one get angry? What feeds anger? Paramatma Prabhu, what do you think would feed anger? What would make a person angry?
Hare Krishna Mataji, it's a material objects. It's lasting for material things.
Yeah, but what would anger a person?
If you don't get what you want.
You don't get something. Yes.
Yeah.
So if you don't get it, anger will arise. So why lust over this material object? Sometimes people get frustrated. You hear that materially, oh, I wish is such a common thing that people say. I wish I could have this. I wish I could have that. And then your neighbor has it, and then you start getting envious of him. So you see how all these are not start building up in the heart. Huh? You become envious because you are lusting something that you cannot have. And then you become angry. And then what sets in after that, we read further in the other verses, bewilderment of memory. You become bewildered. When you become bewildered, intelligence is lost. You start doing silly things. You're not thinking on the platform of intelligence. And when that intelligence is lost, the person falls down. The person falls down. Okay, we've got about 7 minutes. I wanted to finish chapter 2 today, but I don't think it's going to be possible because I don't like rushing through verses. I like us to read Srila Prabhupada's purports. It's very important. I like us to discuss and understand. So I'm thinking we should stop here. And then next week we can do from 64 onwards. We'll have 64, 65, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71. We have 9 verses next week, but they're not long ones. So we can do those next week. Are we all in agreement, or do you want to do one more? Can I hear from everybody, please?
Next week is fine.
Fine. Okay.
Yes, Mataji, it's fine.
All right. Okay. So then I heard somebody say they're going to sing Nrsinga Dev's pranams. Who was that? Shalina Mataji, was it you?
Yes, Mata.
Okay, lovely. So you want to sing for us today. I'm going to just try and find it quickly.
No
It
problem.
on my screen. Stop sharing that. So we just got out of World Holy Name Festival for the past few days. I hope everybody was nicely engaged in World Holy Name Festival. It's very important for us. You know, Lord Chaitanya preached the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra for the entire world. Although Kali Yuga is such a dark age, one good thing came out of it, that we got this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and which, you know, will help purify us and take us back home. And Srila Prabhupada left on the 17th of September as well, the day World Holy Name Festival starts, for New York. He left for the West. And he took this mantra further all over the world. I'll be chanting. Okay, Shalina Mataji, is my screen shared or not?
Not Mata, but it's okay.
No. I'm sharing it right now. Got it?
Got it.
Okay, you can sing, Mataji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Namaste Narsimhaya Pralad Lad Daine Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha Shrilatanka Nakalaye Ito Nirsimha Parato Nirsimha Yato Yato Yamita To Nirsimha Pahir Nirsimho Hridaya Nirsimho Narishim Amham Sharanam Prapade Tava Karakamalavae Nakam Adbhuta Shingam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Vrinda Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Tava Karakamalavae Nakam Adbhuta Shinga Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Vrinda Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada.
Thank you, Shalina Mataji. Thank you very much for that offering, very sweet. Shri Lakshmi Narasimhadev Bhagwan ki jai, Bhakt Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Before we close, any realizations from anyone? Rasabhati Mataji, you got any realizations that you want to share?
No, Mataji, I'm still processing. So
Okay.
when I'm ready, yeah.
No
It
problem.
takes me a bit of time because of health reasons, so it takes me time to
Not a
understand.
problem at all. Not a problem at all. Shalina Mataji, anything from your side?
Mataji, I think the last few verses that we just did today was very jam-packed with knowledge from, sense gratification to not offending a Vaishnava to prasadam. So in these few verses we learned, there's a lot we can take away, for our daily lives and, live a better life.
Yes, absolutely. Who else? Veronica Mataji?
I'm just thinking about the part where it's so difficult to control the mind. Arjuna says to Lord Krishna, it's more difficult it's easier to control the raging wind than controlling the mind. And I'm just wondering, for Arjuna, such a great soul, how difficult it was for him. And I'm just trying to correlate the two. And, therefore, if I'm trying to put it in perspective, that's the reason why we've got the Gita, to help us control that mind.
Yes. Yes. Instructions are flowing from Krishna nicely here, and we should just try and strive. But he's giving us the processes as well, right? Predominantly, mainly, importantly being devotional service, bhakti yoga.
Yes,
Thank you,
Mataji.
Veronica.
It's also something we must try. I promised myself I must try to bring my mind back to the present, because while I'm here, I'm thinking about what I need to do. And, hard, the mind is it's so loose. So we got to keep trying to bring it to the present, to this very moment.
Absolutely. We should practice our chanting more, more seriously as well as we go along.
Yes,
that helps as well.
Yes.
Chanting is very important. Yeah.
Thank you, Mata.
Thank you, Shalina Mataji. Anybody else? Paramatma Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you for the nice class. Mataji, for me, I just noticed that Srila Prabhupada, he doesn't waste time about preaching about Krishna consciousness. You can see in all these purports, he talked a lot about Krishna, and he wants us to attach to Krishna, and as you said, devotional service.
Yeah, Prabhupada is very direct.
Yeah, thank you.
Symptom of a pure devotee. Give it to you as it is. Bhagavad Gita as it is. Okay, anyone else? Navkishore Mataji?
Hare Krishna Mataji. I was just thinking, they're like Amrish Maharaj, Parikshit Maharaj also surrender. He also has that quality of surrendering, because although he knew that he is going to die in 7 days, but he surrendered to Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Sukadeva Goswami, and he continued hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. So from them we got this Srimad Bhagavatam also. So I
Yes.
think as you said, like by chanting also we can control our mind and we can get more focused.
Yes.
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, very nice. Nice, lovely share. Maybe next week we can, since you mentioned Parikshit Maharaj, very important, prominent character in our devotional lives. Maybe we can just briefly introduce Maharaj Parikshit next week. That's about Navkishore Mataji. Maybe you want to just give like a few minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, just introduce Maharaj Parikshit next week. Will you do that?
Yes,
Pa?
Mataji. Yes, Mataji,
Okay.
sure.
Just
Yes,
a few
Mataji.
minutes, just for the benefit of some of us who are not familiar, right?
No
With
problem.
with Parikshit Maharaj. Very important to know who he is.
Sure, Mataji. I will share
Okay.
with you some of his qualities also. I got in
Absolutely. Lovely.
my. Sure, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Lovely. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Anybody else?
Just on that point about controlling the mind,
Yeah.
there was a morning talk, and there was a purport to it. I'm not sure it was a morning talk, but it was somewhere that I read where there was a devotee, initiated devotee, but Prabhupada's initiated devotee, and he said to Prabhupada, it's so difficult to chant, Swamiji. I can't chant. I can't control my mind. It's so difficult. My mind wanders all over and I can't bring it back. And he went on, and Prabhupada said, but I also have a mind. So Prabhupada said, that was like so clever. You think about it.
But also Prabhupada said, also you reminding me of, on that note, Prabhupada said, one of his disciples asked him and said that, he can't, when he starts chanting, he can't think of Krishna. He can't think of pastimes. He can't think. And Prabhupada said, what do you want to think about? Just chant. Just chant. Hear and chant. He said, hear and chant. You've got to hear and chant, because when you utter the mantra and it enters through the ears, it enters into the heart. And it cleanses the heart. And that process will help you when the heart gets cleansed of all the anarthas, of all the bad qualities. It will help you remember Krishna and his pastimes. That I thought was very sweet.
That's so clever. Yeah, it's so absolutely. It's so true.
All right. So if there's nothing else, we can conclude here. From anybody else? No, Bharti and Riaz have anything to say?
Years you read newspaper accounts of crimes.
Okay, nobody else, then let us conclude. Om Namah Om Vishnu Pad Paramans Parivargacharya Stotra is divine grace of H. Aranaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namah Om Vishnu Pad Paramans Parivargacharya Stotra Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham, Mathura Dham, Mayapur, Jagannath Puri, Pandarpur, Arvade Dham Ki Jai. Kurukshetra Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Tulasi Devi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nand Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hare Hare Bol. All glories to the Simul devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the Simul devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the Simul devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Vasindubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah, Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Ki Jai. Thank you very much, dear devotees. So I shall see you all next week. Looking forward to
Thank
meeting
you,
you all again.
Mataji.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Very
Krishna.
lovely.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you.
Thank you for the
Hare Krishna.
associations, all you lovely devotees.
So nice to
Hare
see Navkishore Mataji. I haven't seen you before. You got your video
Hare
on.
Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna, Mataji.